managerial accounting, absorption costing versus variable costing. Now we're ready to take a look at what the product cost would be under scenario B, and in turn how that product cost rolls into the calculation of cost of goods sold. Now recall that in scenario B we sold the same number of units as in scenario A. We sold 9,000 units, but in scenario B we produced 10,000 units, resulting in an increase in inventory from the beginning to the end of the period. Now let's look at how that difference impacts our product cost per unit. Now, no change in materials, no change in labor or variable overhead. The difference in the two is going to appear in our fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. Now in scenario B, total fixed cost is still the same $450,000. But in scenario B, we produced 10,000 units. So our fixed overhead per unit, 450,000 divided by 10,000 units produced, our fixed overhead per unit is going to be $45. So in scenario B, instead of having a $100 manufacturing cost per unit, our per unit manufacturing cost is the $50 of material, labor, and variable overhead plus $45 of fixed overhead for a product cost of $95 per unit. Now, what changed? The only thing that changed from scenario A to scenario B is how many units were produced. We sold the same number of units, but the number of units produced caused our fixed overhead per unit to decrease, which in turn caused our product cost, full product cost per unit, to decrease. Now, let's see how that fits into the calculation of cost of goods sold under scenario B. Now here we have what we've already seen for scenario A. Now let's take a look at the numbers under scenario B. Our finished goods beginning, and again for simplicity's sake we're going to assume that in scenario B the number of units produced and the cost in the prior period were the same as those of this period. So those 500 units in beginning inventory would also have been costed at $95 per unit. So beginning inventory would have had a total cost of $47,500. Our cost of goods manufactured, of course, is for the number of units produced. So that would be, in scenario B, 10,000 units produced at our product cost for B of $95. So 950,000 and our finished goods ending inventory would also be costed out at $95, but remember we had 500 in beginning, we produced 10,000 and sold only 9,000. So our ending inventory under scenario B is 1,500 units at $95 per unit. So the inventory level increased in scenario B from beginning to the end of the period. So 1,500 units times $95, our ending finished goods inventory has a total cost of $142,500. So beginning finished goods plus cost of goods manufactured minus ending finished goods equals our cost of goods sold which in scenario B is $855,000. 47.5 plus 950 minus 142.5, cost of goods sold, $855,000. So notice, scenario A and scenario B, we sold the same number of units, 9,000 units. But because of the way we cost the product, there is a difference in cost of goods sold, 900,000 minus 855,000. Okay, so that difference is due entirely to the treatment of fixed manufacturing overhead. Because we're costing out or allocating out the fixed overhead based on units produced, we've got a difference in cost of goods sold for the same number of units, but a different level of production.